Mayor Pete, the Trump campaign is holding rallies around the country, including in Allentown today. The Biden campaign is holding limited appearances that are socially distanced. Does that put you at a disadvantage in connecting with supporters?
I don't think it's ever a disadvantage to show respect for the health and safety of your supporters and voters, and that's what the Biden-Harris campaign is going to continue to do. But you're seeing all kinds of outreach in person and virtual, trying to turn out every last vote because we know that this is going to be a close race, and we know how important it is that everyone have their voices heard. And even now, we know that there are many voters making up their minds, especially people wondering whether they should join all of the Republicans switching over to stand alongside independents and Democrats, moderates, and progressives who want change in this country. We got to make sure we're doing our part to urge everyone to take that step and vote.
Biden campaigned in Luzerne County and Bucks County this weekend, but much of his base is the black voters in Philadelphia. Are you planning on hitting Philadelphia, or are you taking for granted that black voters there will support you with or without a campaign swing?
No, the vote in Philadelphia is critically important, and the vice president's outreach to black voters is part of how he became the nominee and is going to be vitally important all the way through to Election Day. Right now, everyone has so much at stake in this election, but in particular, anyone who has experienced the impacts of a president who has divided America, who has told a white supremacist group to stand by, no one has felt more than people of color, and especially black Americans, all of the harms of this administration. We've got to come together now and deliver a new and better one.
Your thoughts on Mike Pence campaigning as some members of his inner staff tested positive for COVID-19?
Well, this raises serious questions about whether this White House is capable of even protecting its own members, let alone the rest of the country. And we still haven't heard a very clear answer on how and whether this is safe. But we already know that they don't really understand how to have a handle on this for the country. So I guess we shouldn't be so surprised that they don't have a handle on it for themselves either. This is really serious stuff. And the time has come for us to get a clear answer, as Joe Biden has provided, on how to make testing and treatment and eventually a vaccine universally available and free of charge so that we can finally conquer this pandemic and get our lives back and get our economy back. It can't come a moment too soon.
How would Joe Biden respond to the COVID crisis as president?
Well, he's made it very clear that he's going to bring together the scientific and medical community and back up those local leaders, mayors, county officials, governors, emergency responders, and public health officials who are urging the public to take certain steps in order to keep us safe. He's going to use the full resources of not just the American government, but all of the partnerships that we can have across the American people to swiftly deliver a vaccine the moment that it's been cleared and approved for safe use. And again, to make sure that that's free of charge, because this is truly a national emergency, the likes of which we haven't seen on the public health front in literally 100 years. What you're not going to see is a President Biden doing what Donald Trump has, telling people it's going to go away, saying we're going around the corner, saying it's fine, when we're actually seeing some of the worst numbers ever. We're never going to beat this until we face it. This president is incapable of facing it. It's going to be very different with Joe Biden in charge.
I want to ask about Joe Biden's plan to attack systemic racism in policing. In Bucks County last week, a bank robber pulled a gun on a state trooper. The gun dry fired, and the trooper wrestled and subdued him. The bank robber was white. And contrast that with what happened in Waukegan, Illinois last week, where police officers shot at two black people who were unarmed, killing one of them. How will Biden as president fix what's broken in our policing?
So he's made very clear that support for law and order doesn't mean that you back off one bit on racial justice, and that we can't have safety in this country until we have safety for everybody. There continues to be an epidemic of often unarmed black men being shot by police officers, and supporting law enforcement doesn't mean supporting that. The reality is, as Senator Harris has said, bad cops are bad for good cops, and the only way forward is for us to take the steps that are needed to have accountability and to make sure that there is de-escalation, all of the steps needed in order to keep communities safe and ensure that a black American, when they see red and blue lights approaching, can expect to be made more and not less safe by the arrival of a police officer.
Quick answer. Are you optimistic or cautious because the polls have you in double digits in some places ahead?
Well, the polls are great, but it doesn't mean anything if people don't vote. That's why it's so important to get out the vote of those who want change, to make sure we win over the vote of those who are still on the fence. We've learned our lessons from the past and will not take anything for granted. That's why we're working so hard these last 8 days leading through Election Day. It's not even an election day, it's a voting season that ends on Election Day. At least that's how I think of it. And we've got to make the most of every hour of that voting season.
All right, Pete Buttigieg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, pleasure to be with you.